I'm going to flip through this deck, and I want you to see one card, and not this one. That's too obvious. Pay close attention. That was too fast. I'll do it again. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you see one?
Yes.
Do you have one in mind?
Yes.
Now, do you see your card here?
No.
That's because you're looking too closely. And what have I been telling you all night? The closer you look, the less you see.
Long time no see, everyone, and welcome to the show, one you might never get to see again. Lately, I've been having an issue with media in general. What once was a source of novel joy seem more like clusters of recurring patterns now. And every now and then, there's what I would call a spark in some works, something that likely comes down to how some creators deliver their message through their art, their creation. But the reality is, I think, that also has a lot more to do with who's watching, and in so doing, transforming whatever it is the creator intended to convey originally through a movie or show into something different. And I think this is where the magic truly happens, where a creator's work serves as a catalyst or prompt even to unlock insights in other people that might transcend what it seemed the creator tried to communicate. But in reality, all those patterns were already latent in the creator's original message, whether they even knew it or not. And you don't get to see that when you're just looking at the details, the small clues or the trees versus the forest. It is in the details that the illusions take place, but the magic is really the bigger picture. If you've been watching the show From and the videos on this channel, you would know we've discussed these topics to some extent. In the case of the show From, I think the creators have consistently, and even not so subtly, conveyed this message of hyper-focusing on small details versus seeing the collective. Even though the show's design hinges a lot on the illusion that is created by scattering all of these small clues, along with the message, quite ironically, that detail hunting is neither the path to meaning nor real answers.
So you really think this is going to tell you anything?
I think this place has a design. I don't think anything's here by accident.
Maybe that's your problem.
This is one of the reasons why you've maybe noticed I don't place as much emphasis on a lot of the small details anymore, even though at times I've decided to show examples of how microscopic one can truly get without really getting anywhere meaningful. And this is also what I have meant by a show like From also being a kind of social experiment, in the sense that by design, it is meant to be an interactive and ever-morphing puzzle with the audience. One that I believe is also meant to be an exercise to convey this implied final message or lesson in some way on how they're getting the audience to engage in the same patterns of behavior that are preventing the characters in the show from moving forward or coming to closure with their current dilemma, where they're looking for linear and intuitive answers to situations that don't align with how they think things are supposed to be and who they're supposed to be. When the creators promise that the elements of this show are fully mapped and there will be answers, I believe they meant thematic elements. In interviews, they have also talked about taking liberties and detours on how these elements are executed on. Details for the show can involve things like the mechanics of how things happen, like how faraway trees work, and how specific elements in the landscape connect to other elements. However, while the show can have an established framework as a guide, the creators have expressed how details can evolve and change anytime to add more richness to a story that is ultimately about human nature. Also, one of the reasons I don't think anybody will be cracking or decoding the show at the clue level. Clue here being a catch-all for all the small details that add extra taste to the overall story, but are secondary to it. And I think something John Griffin, creator of the show, might refer to as the texture of the story being alive and ever evolving. And I will say likely even in response to how the audience reacts and theorizes about the show. In fact, there are some very cool small details in the show I've noticed over a year ago and decided not to mention those because of how interesting I think they'd be if they're proving to be a reality in the show, as if showing them will jinx it. Something that, believe it or not, happens a lot in shows, especially ones like this. And it's also how the story can remain unpredictable. The magician can suddenly change the trick at any time. And speaking of magic as the art of illusionism, I believe that's another theme the show has been alluding at subtly since its first season, even down to the elements of playing cards, Julie's t-shirt on the pilot episode, puppets, and the references to psychedelics and other types of substance use. More on that later. And it all maps to the psychological themes beautifully as well, like our actions being driven by unseen forces and our lack of visibility into those drives, creating the illusion and giving us a false sense of security about what's going on. Just like we might think we know what's happening on this show at the texture level, but we really don't, and that is good. As for the show, I hope From ends on a successful note and the creators get the flowers they deserve, because they stand out among all the other bigger productions, which tells me they're tapping into something raw within themselves and executing on that optimally with the given resources. Now, raw is the keyword here, because From doesn't feel polished as a show. I would think of Severance as polished, and I say that as a compliment, where From is in this rare Goldilocks zone between raw and polished that makes for that feeling of uniqueness I think a lot of people are attracted to when they watch it. With all of that said, when I make and share a video, I try to make sure that it is meaningful to me first, and that I truly feel that I have something to say. And that's all that matters to me, because there's nothing that's truly new under the sun, is there? Nothing that matters most like the experience of creating something that speaks to us in some way, as fleeting and repetitious as it may be. Anyways, until